This is, as adults, we're here, we want to start something new, we want to be at 100% immediately. I do my open water, but I want to be in that cave next week. It is always a bit of a progress.
One thing that scuba's brought to a lot of people that I talk to is it's brought them an active lifestyle.
I mean, if you're enjoying your sport right now, and if you want to be at that level, you'll have to sacrifice from some parts or many parts of your life.
Welcome to Dive Around the World, the podcast that brings you stories, insights, and adventure from beneath the surface. Each episode, we explore the people, places, and passion that make diving more than just a sport.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Dive Around the World podcast. Today you will find us again. Adam is here, Memo is here, and myself, Corinna, obviously the team. And today we talk about how to move forward in your dive career and all about continuing education and the fun stuff we have experienced, but also cool things that you can experience in future. So how are you guys doing?
I'm fantastic, thank you.
It's
good to be back. Actually, you know, we've had a bit of a break while we've been traveling and teaching a little bit, so I'm really excited to get.
Yeah, I also think it's always a good time hanging out, chatting, talking about. Usually, we end up just talking about our lives a lot. I know, but we try to put in as much good information for you as we can.
Yeah.
We'll put a standard
Memo,
in
let's start with you. Yeah, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your career. How did you start that? How did you get into it? Where did you start?
Was spearfishing. That was my first passion. My father used to spearfish, and of course, following the father's footsteps, I found myself into that scene. I fell in love with freediving, spearfishing a little bit deeper and deeper. And at some point in my life, I moved from my country to another one, Gibraltar, by the way, and found a job there to sustain my daily income, and I kept spearfishing and freediving. And later on, call it like life, karma, you name it. So I met one freediving world champion back here in Bodrum out of coincidence. And that guy told me that I should start teaching freediving. Of course, like the words came from this ear, went out from that ear. So it's like after 2 minutes, I forget about that. 6 months later, I met Greek freediving champion. He told me the same thing, and I said, okay, how do we do it? I started to take classes just like our customers, students, one course after the other. I found myself in the instructor course. Then I really liked it. So that became my life since 2011. Yeah, but spearfishing or freediving since I was a kid, I would say. So predominantly that was my thing.
And your spearfishing, Memo, was it like through an agency? Was it certified, or was it just learn from your father, kind of see how he does it and move on? Were you doing it? Were you doing it as a trainee?
Well, you forget my age. By the time when I started spearfishing, there was no agency teaching about that. And of course, my father, he was coming from another era of freediving, breath holding. I mean, the first advice he gave to me was hyperventilation was good. So I tried, I was feeling like extremely dizzy. I just couldn't do that. So it was a lot of trial and error in the first part of my, freediving career. That was basically a couple of internet sites which we were sharing information. It was all about mistakes and what you take out of these mistakes. I have tinnitus from these days,
Here was 15-year-old Memo on MSN Messenger telling everybody, hyperventilating is not good, guys.
Exactly like that. So if we chat about that on a table with a drink or two, it's super funny. But if I end up telling these stories, it's a little bit scary, so we don't want to talk about that.
Okay, good point. What about you, Corinna? Where did you get into diving?
I grew up in and around the dive center. It was in my DNA when I was so obsessed with diving from when I was very little, where my dad had to tell me, you can't, you're too small, you're too small, you're too small. And then when I started, when I did my first, like, there was a kids certification back then, maybe also a bit younger than we would start kids now. But I was so obsessed. I would go on every single dive, very shallow, of course. We had this like beach playground area underwater that was like 5-6 meters. And I would go 3 times a day when I was like 8 or 9. And I was so obsessed. At 9, I logged 100 dives and I was like, I need to dive. I need to do more of it. So that was my summers. And then kind of I was always a swimmer also. And when I was competitive swimming was really hard where I was because there was very few pools. So it was more difficult. So I was competitive for a few years, but then the pools closed down and driving for 1.5 hours 3 times a week just to go to practice, that just wasn't feasible. But I got into teaching swimming then very early. I started at like 18, 19. When I was 19, I did like some teacher trainers actually with SSI. And I was in the US for a few months in the swim schools, learning everything there is to know about swimming, SSI swimming, learning to swim. And yeah, so that's how I've been here. And diving since then, obviously the entire time as well. I mean, became an instructor 18, like my first instructor certification was issued on my 18th birthday.
I think everybody needs to know, right? Your father is a bit of a legend in diving, right? He's not quite Cousteau, but he's up there. You're a diving family, right?
Yeah.
He
Diving
is.
family.
I mean, guys, if you're following SSI University, he is in the top 3 consistently logging
Consistent.
first. Yeah.
Got a good internet connection there in Austria.
Yeah.
So Adam, you are in a bit of a interesting, you obviously didn't start cave diving as a 8-year-old child. How did you get
No.
into it?
No.
I sometimes have a feeling he might be.
Yeah, I may have been born at depth. No, my story starts in exactly the same place as Memo's, would you believe it? In Bodrum in Turkey.
Ooh.
I was on
What
vacation
of
with my
us in
family.
Turkey then?
Yeah, wow, everybody was in Turkey. What a place to start to learn to dive.
It's the water. Yeah.
It's the water that catches you. I basically was 11 years old, 12 years old, and my father said, okay, what do you want to do while you're on holiday? And I was like, well, I want to learn to fly because I want to be a pilot. That was my thing originally. And he said, okay, so when we get back, you can have flying lessons, but you can't do that in Turkey. And I was like, okay. We said, do you want to learn to dive or fly? And like a kid, I said, okay, the thing I can do right now, that's what I do. So I learned to dive. And it comes full circle. Go like 15 years down the line, and my scuba instructor, who still is a scuba instructor in Bodrum, I taught her to dive a rebreather. So it's come full circle eventually. I was a holiday diver like a lot of people. I was diving on vacations. I sort of moved through the career path and eventually decided at 18 to stop working in the real world and go and become a dive master. I went to Egypt, became a dive master, did an instructor program, and that's where in Dahab I learned like the water gets a lot deeper. In Dahab you have these sheer walls that there's a lot to see. 30 meters. I wasn't a deep diver then. I was only an advanced open water diver, so 30 meters was my limit. But 30 meters felt like the top 0.25%. I could see so much more. And there's a lot of canyons and caves and overhead stuff and stuff wrecks in Egypt as well. So that really interested me. And I would never wanted to be a professional on the tech side. I always assumed you had to be, a diving god to do that kind of diving. I wanted to just learn about it for my own diving and do it as fun. So I went to a super famous guy, Tom Steiner. Everybody knows Tom. And Tom was my mentor, and he showed me how to do it and the right way to go about technical diving in a safe way. From the very outset, it was never scary to me. I found it very, very simple to do, and that helped. And that helped me then want to bring that message to everybody else. So, of course, like we're discussing continuing education, I was constantly moving up through those levels. You have, of course, your full recreational career path that I had running on one hand. Then I had a full, technical diver career path on the other hand. Also, Dahab's a great place for freediving. So I did some of my entry-level freediving programs there as well. And so the opportunities to learn were really based around where I chose to put myself. And so being in Turkey, being in Dahab, those are the places that I managed to get that connection. In the end, money ran out, like everybody. That means I had to come back and get an actual, a proper job, if you want to call it a proper job, let's say.
We've all been there for a little bit.
Yeah.
I had to put a shirt and a tie on and go to work for Toyota. I did really well in Toyota, honestly, but it wasn't my thing. One day I said, I need out. I was working as a project manager in the building industry. And I said, if I don't get a tattoo on my neck and down past my sleeves, I'm going to go back to this corporate world. So I decided that was my day. And I bought a dive center in the UK. I was, again, amazed as I was the diving in Turkey or Egypt, amazed again with the type of diving and community that we have in local markets. And so seeing all these things, that's what's kept me in that career path. That's what kept me developing and why I became a pro.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Let's look a little bit at the career path itself, right? Okay, let's say you have a diver out there, somebody that just did their open water, they just did their free diver, right? Their first certification. Now they want to go deeper. They are hooked, like we were hooked that time, you know, that blue. The blue in Turkey, the water is a different kind of blue. That's something, it's incredible. Anyways, so Memo, for a freediver, what would you say they should look at next? Or what should they do? Where should they move? How next steps, next ideas?
Well, of course, like the rule number one, if you want to be a good freediver, you need practice, right? I mean, courses give you the fundamental skills, the foundation that you require at every level. However, practice makes it perfect. So you need to repeat, feel comfortable, and eventually the skills start to feel like second nature. You just stop thinking about what to do. It becomes your conditional response. And diving feels in general amazing when you are at that level. So trying to progress super fast in the career pathway usually is a big hiccup. It kind of bites the diver, back. That's the thing. You should, sign a truce between yourself, your ego, and then just enjoy the process. When people say it's not the destination, it's the journey, it's kind of these, famous quotes. Everyone knows, everyone hates it though, because everyone is obsessed with the target, with the destination. But you should definitely try to learn from that journey. That's what freediving is about. Luckily, our training standards give you enough buffer. We dictate the required training sessions between each courses, and they are quite generous. If you are following the standards, which you have to, it gives you you shouldn't be counting like it's the military service and you're scratching the wall. This is how many log sessions I have for the next level. But it prepares you in a very nice way for the next level. Many people enjoy freediving in a different point of view. Some are getting obsessed with depth, but some are really enjoying what they can see on a single breath hold because it's super silent and you can kind of develop relationship with the underwater world. Fish doesn't get super scared easily. And if you know how to approach, marine life accepts you in a very unique way when you're freediving. So you should acknowledge these moments. You should practice them. You should understand, this is why you love the sport. And depending on what you really like, we have something in SSI to offer you. Maybe it's not the next level, which is teaching you a higher level of skills. Maybe you should be looking into an ecology program or a different kind of freediving specialty to be better at what you really like and enjoy. I think that's the secret. Enjoying freediving, at least, forever and ever. That's what I can say.
That's what I really like about your guys' categories. Both of your categories, swim and freediving, you don't need the levels. They come when they come, right? You sort of, you do your entry level, you build a bit of technique, and then you eventually build a little bit of, bravery, however you want to call it. You push yourself a little bit harder, and then the next course is there waiting for you. And then you go again, and in freediving, I'm sure equalization holds you back, or I'm sure total, CO2 tolerance holds you back. In swim, same thing, CO2 tolerance and, efficiency in the water and that stuff like that. And that's what sort of holds you back. In our category, we have to be a little bit careful because you could go to the depth. You could go to the depth on a single
Your brain
thing.
has to hold you back.
You have to hold yourself back because the equipment is capable. You can put rebreather on and go to 300 meters. do you come back from 300 meters? Especially when the rebreather isn't working. That's what we have as an issue. And so tell me, because I don't, the career path in swim, I understand it, but like, how does it fit in, Corinna? Where, let's say survival swim, that's where we start, right? That's drown proofing. That is, enough to get you into a a comfortable-ish position in the water. But then where do we go from there?
So swim is an interesting one. The nice thing after survival swim, theoretically, you can stop and go scuba dive, stand-up paddling, kayaking, cave diving, maybe, who knows? But you can also move forward and learn actual strokes. In survival swim, it's like you said, drown proofing, floating on your back. You don't really know how to swim and move in the water properly. After that, you will actually start learning strokes. So usually we start with freestyle and we do like a survival backstroke because both of them are very important. We don't usually start with a breaststroke because that's a very old European thing. I don't know if you know swimming.
I have an
like
interesting
Japan
question.
With the head up.
I want to know why it's called freestyle, not front crawl. Because freestyle, I would say, if somebody wasn't doing something particularly well, I go, oh yeah, that's freestyle. If you're just kind of flapping around the world, yeah, that's freestyle as well. Everything's freestyle. You're freestyling it. Go ahead.
Fun fact, you're actually not wrong. It's been used in a way that the front crawl is called freestyle just because for years and years, because it is the fastest stroke. In the World Aquatics regulations, theoretically, you can swim any stroke in the freestyle competition. But everybody swims freestyle because it's the fastest. And that's why conversationally, most people call it freestyle. So you are correct that actually it could be a front crawl. And yes, you can try and win your freestyle race in a exotic jellyfish. You will probably not, though.
Because if you fall in and you're drowning, technically that's freestyle, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe not freestyle swimming, it's just freestyle.
Sorry, I interrupted you. So yeah, you learn your strokes. You start with freestyle.
That was a very good interruption, though. Yeah, you start with freestyle because freestyle is the most gentle on your body of the strokes. That's why most people that swim longer distances also swim freestyle. Granted, you need to swim it correctly, obviously, because if you swim freestyle wrong, then it's very bad for your body, like any other stroke, really. And we even go as far, especially with adults, they can choose to learn the other competitive strokes, or they can decide to maybe go on endurance with their main stroke, which is usually freestyle. So there's two pathways for an adult. I want to do long distance, like what Memo does, longer distances, maybe open water swimming. I mean, that would still be in the freestyle stroke or in the front crawl stroke. You will learn how to spot and a bunch of other things. Or you can decide and go towards other competitive strokes, which would be the backstroke, so competitive backstroke, breaststroke, and butterfly. As adults, it is very unlikely that you will win swim competitions, if you are learning to swim at 25. Maybe not, because the competitive swim world is hardcore. Like a nice thing to compare ourselves to good swimmers. If you are a good, fast, comfortable swimmer, Olympic swimmers will usually be at least twice as fast as you. Any distance.
I would say
least.
3, yeah.
Most of them 3 times, yeah.
I've stood next to an Olympic swimmer in an elevator, and they look like bodybuilders. They're enormous. They don't look, because they're all stood next to each other when you see them at the Olympics. You're sort of like, oh yeah, they're muscly people. But they're not. They're like, some of them, it looks like 3 strokes and they're at the other end of the pool already because they've got.
But they lift a lot of weight as well. Yeah.
But not just that. Most Olympic swimmers, even the women, have a wingspan, so arms across, of 2 meters or more, 2.6. Like that's even the women. So it's huge. So that's why I could have also never really made it.
Genetics helps, right?
Yeah. Because if you have a good arm stroke, basically it's not the hand, right? It's the whole arm catching the water and pulling it back. So the longer your wingspan, the faster theoretically you go. So
you and me are stuff, Corinna. I've got these little short, stubby little arms as well. So
same.
Like little T-Rex.
Guys, by the way, I have a joke.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, Corinna, you can cut this out. That's kind of on the edge. So that was the swim competition of disabled people. And then, they were announcing the countries, and one was coming up, like missing the arms. The other candidate was coming, the participant was coming, one leg was missing. And on the lane 8, they announced the participant, and just the head arrived. It rolled into the room. They put it under the, jumping deck. And everyone was looking at him, and he said, what? We're going to race or what? And they said, okay. And it was like 3, 2, 1, beep, like everyone jumped, and the head rolled forward, of course, freestyle. And it went straight down. And they were looking at it. It was not moving. It was not moving. And one guy jumped and took him out and said, like, dude, what happened? He said, man, I cramped.
Well, you're right. We're going to cut it out, but it is funny.
Yeah. Sorry. I had to tell this. Yeah.
There was this lady on Instagram, coming back to the swimmers with the gigantic arm spans and being so fast at the Olympics. There's this lady on Instagram with the last Olympics that started like a semi-petition where she said they should just put in a normal person with every sport, just so, because with so many of the sports, you don't see how amazing the people are. Just put a normal person so we have a little bit more comparison. Like have a normal swimmer swim like half the speed or a third of the speed, then at least do we understand how amazing these athletes really are.
Yeah, and I think that goes for, we've said this a few times in our podcast, right, is that the Olympians, the highest performers in our sport, it's not really the same sport. The best freedivers are not the people we're talking about. The best swimmers are not going through an SSI program. The most deepest cave explorers, they're not learning to cave dive today. These are people who learnt the basics from us at some point and then have gone and dedicated their entire lives to refining this one special thing. And so, then it's not, it's super nice to say that they represent us somehow, but I don't think we should make them as like targets, because it's impossible, right? You'll always be disappointed if you're trying to be Michael Phelps.
It comes with a lot of sacrifice as well. I mean, if you're enjoying your sport right now, and if you want to be at that level, you'll have to sacrifice from some parts or many parts of your life. I guarantee you that you won't be enjoying what you do as much as you do right now at that level.
100%.
Yeah. Also, Michael Phelps especially, what he used to say about why he was better than most people is because he didn't take a single rest day. He would train 8 hours, 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. 7 days a week, every day. So that's just
Christmas,
crazy. So Adam,
Easter, every time. Yeah.
Every time. Adam, so I've done my open water diver. It was great. And now I spend way too much time on Instagram. And there's all these amazing tech divers in caves, perfect trim, no sediment in the cave, most clearest water of the world. And then now I want to be that.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things
Tell me more.
So one of the biggest things we get asked when people enter the technical diving community is, how do I get on one of these projects? And for us, we use the word project because quite often expedition means something a lot more. A lot of people say the word expedition, it meant they had to pack 2 pairs of socks. But we don't, that's not really an expedition, so we sort of leave that to one side. So we say this project diving. Project diving is where you could choose something that's already been dived, or you could discover something that's not been dived, or you could look at something that's been done already in a new way, but takes a technical mindset to do it. So it doesn't even need to necessarily be deep or have loads of decompression or be in an overhead. It could just require a good amount of preparation, equipment, and time to get it done. So these projects are what people want to be involved in, because it's the experience side of our diver diamond, right? It's being able to take what you've learned and use it in the real world to achieve something. People always like the goals for their dives. So we set goals for most technical dives as part of our mission, and that's what we're trying to achieve. Now, it might be go and see this thing, or as simple as that. Or, it could be to do a 3D photogrammetry map of a 7.5 kilometer cave system. This scope. And so what I tell people is, start doing your own projects. That's the best way to get involved, because nobody's going to say, you've just learned to tech dive, come on, let's throw you in at the deep end and you're going to be underground for 2 months. Those two things are like a long way apart. So start with your own projects and get involved.
But definitely at the end of your career, you will be 2 months underground.
Well, I'll tell you a story about a guy
Or
called
longer.
Phil Short, right? Phil Short, cave explorer, real explorer. He was in the J2 cave in Mexico. Him and a team of 60-something people carried equipment into the cave, carrying it in for a month. Then they dived for a month, and then they carried all their stuff out for a month. So it was a 3-month project of which he spent over a month underground. He came out and his skin had changed, and he lost about a third of his body weight. So yeah, there is some
He became the
wild
Gollum.
stuff. He looks like Gollum anyway. I don't think
Yeah,
you mind me saying he
exactly.
looks like Gollum anyway. He looked like Gollum when he went in. But yeah, you imagine
Precious
those,
rebreather.
this is what it's like, right? On the cutting edge, on the sharp edge of this stuff, it can be that. Or you see what Miko's doing in competition mines in the north of Thailand. You know, these things, you go to finding these things in the jungle. But again, it's quite a long way away from what's achievable for most people. People have got jobs to do. People want to do this as a hobby type activity as well. And so I say to people, set your own goals to learn project type diving. So we have this really cool thing like baseline type projects where you say, I just want to pick something and collect data on it. Find your local wreck. Go and actually start collecting data there. Go and do like salinity levels or life on the wreck. Go and do visibility checks, temperatures, all that kind of stuff. Start collecting that data. Learn to do photogrammetry modeling because it's super easy now to access photogrammetry. Start with an SI photo and video program and then go find an instructor that can teach you to do all of the other things that go around spending more time underwater, like decompression diving or maybe extended range. Think a little bit about what you might need. You might need a scooter to carry this camera around. So start to build those continuing education programs that allow you to then do these more complicated tasks. Once you've got a little bit of experience, you don't need to be the most experienced, but once you've got a little bit of experience, you'll start to meet people in the community and you'll be able to say, oh, well, actually, maybe that thing I could help with. You know, we have no end of people willing to carry tanks for us, and we don't mind carrying our own tanks. So we don't need lackeys. We need people who can add something to the project or willing to help to add something to the projects. And so that little bit's the experience key. The key to getting into these things is a little tiny bit of experience, which you can get in your own community with your own little group. You know, being able to work as a team, that's a skill that is massively underrated when you're trying to achieve quite a complex goal. And how do you train to be in a team? Well, lots of time being in a team. Okay, we need structured debriefs, human factors, that kind of thing, and they're all really important. Build those continuing education programs and then go and do it in the field of practice. What about you, Corinna? What do you think? What do you think takes these people and gets them involved in the type of activity, scuba or swim?
So I think one important piece of information that everybody out there should know. Everybody has started once. This is, as adults, we're here, we want to start something new, we want to be at 100% immediately. I do my open water, but I want to be in that cave next week. It is always a bit of a progress. And like Memo said so nicely, the journey is the nice part. And one thing that I find super cool about what we do with SSI is how we can benefit from each other. Meaning, yes, I teach swimming. I'm also scuba professional, obviously, but I also enjoy freediving a lot. So what we do learn is the benefits from each range for my main thing. For example, I am much more comfortable on my scuba dives and underwater knowing that I'm very comfortable swimming, which keeps my heart health, general cardiovascular health a lot better, which makes my air consumption better and everything just feels a bit better. I'm more flexible, all of that. Memo, what is your story? How does another SSI range, another thing within SSI influence what you do?
I think swimming, it really changed my, the whole understanding on freediving. Traditionally, of course, coming from that side, everyone believes that the more you freedive, the better you get, which is not completely untrue. But there's a limit. You will be restricted with your capacity and you will reach to a plateau, in your physical abilities. So swimming, I think, is the foundation of everything, of all aquatic activities. The more you become efficient in the water, the more capable you feel in the discipline that you are actually practicing. And of course, it opens up a new window where you start enjoying things at a different level. That's what I felt with swimming. But I think I can pass the ball to Adam in the same sense as well, because I've seen a lot of scuba divers, saying the same thing once they tried freediving. You know?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I learned so much from my freediving courses over the years, and also talking to people like you, Memo, you know, experienced freedivers. One of the things we struggle with in technical diving is being able to reference ourselves against how good we are. In freediving, you guys can do that because you have dynamic lists. You know, you can place yourself. You don't have to necessarily want to get better, but you know where you fit. Am I amazing at this, or am I, you know, learning at this? Am I improving on myself? That's something I took from you guys. The other thing was I was really able to leverage my equalization techniques, because I don't equalize at all with my hands anymore, straight into freediving. And so for me, I was like, get me involved in some variable weight freediving, because I don't have a long breath hold, but I want to get down and see stuff. And so variable weight was the best for me. Variable weight, just like grab a brick, go to the bottom and swim around, see everything, really enjoy it, and then panic and come to the surface. But there was a panic. It was a panic I struggled with, right? And that's where that's where I think the freediving really helps. When I'm in Mexico, we do yoga and freediving breathing exercises for scuba divers. And the reason is because if you can keep calm when you have a slightly elevated level of CO2, that will really help you out in technical diving. We're deep, we're breathing quite a dense gas, the CO2 levels build up quite quickly. If you are completely incapacitated by that, now I'm not saying we should have become CO2 tolerant so we can not breathe properly and not look after our rebreathers, but what I'm saying is if you work a little bit too hard because you're a little bit panicked, or you're, you know, struggling into a current or flow into a cave, being able to have that slight understanding of, okay, this is what my body's doing, this is why I feel like that, that's why I'm starting to feel hot, perceptual narrowing, increased breathing rate, and having the techniques to be able to not take it away, but be able to manage it and to be able to understand it. That really was something from freediving I took and said, that's it. But that goes all the way back to swim, right? In swim, you learn how to breathe properly, when to breathe, when not to breathe. You know, and you learn body coordination. One of the things I struggle with teaching technical divers is people who have no body coordination. You know, some people say extend your legs and their arms come out, and you say no, put your head back, and then they tip the whole body forward, and I'm like, where does this, you know, inability to move your body come from? And I think if there were swimmers first, or freedivers, holding, you know, core position, leg position, all that stuff is really unique to what you guys do. Those things would transfer across both ways. So yeah, I think it's definitely a two-way street.
I also find body awareness is becoming actually a bit of a bigger issue. You know, I still work with a lot of kids. I still teach because I like to get out of my office and teach some of the kids sometimes. And one thing I've been seeing in the last 5-6 years is that kids are having a much harder time learning physical activity. They so active these days. They're not so active. They sit in front of their computers a lot more. They don't go outside so much. They stiff. I have children, like 10-year-olds, that can barely climb out of the pool because they're so stiff. Having a general awareness, physical abilities, just understanding left arm up means this, right arm up means this, right? Extend your arm, straight arms, stuff like that is really hard for some people. And if it wasn't taught to you as a child, and if you haven't done any, I mean, this can now be any sport. It can also be dancing or soccer or whatever. But if you haven't been active as a child, trying to do anything as an adult is 10 times harder, 100 times harder.
Yeah.
I think, you know, one thing that scuba's brought to a lot of people that I talk to is it's brought them an active lifestyle. You know, forget pros. Pros need to be fit, but the divers just getting out once a week, going into the local swimming pool if they live in a cool climate, or going out once a month on the boat, having to carry your equipment, get on the boat, deal with the moving water, deal with a moving boat, that strengthens your core, get the equipment on, get in and out, overheat a little bit with your suit on, that increases your cardiovascular fitness. And you'd be surprised what a day's diving, if you minus all the beers at the end, actually does for your physical fitness, right? So that just having that active lifestyle, having a reason to go out and swim, having a reason to go out and free dive, having a reason to go out and do some scuba, those people tend to get, you know, when it comes to later in life, say, you know, I am actually a little bit fitter than had I just, you know, my weekend activity was going shopping or going to the pub or, you know, going and doing things in the garden, you know. So I think it's a great thing. It's a great thing to get out of the house. It's a great thing to meet people, and it's a great thing for your physical fitness, right? Continue education or
100%.
just dive in.
Yeah, totally agree. Also on the mental fitness as well. You know, you socialize, you interact, you think about it, or you stop thinking about daily concerns when you are focusing on your activity. That's as important as well.
Yeah,
Good
and
point.
the socializing aspect. I think that is one of the most essential things that people don't think about so much in diving. It is such a, no matter which one of our activities you do, it is a social experiment, right? You go out, you meet people, you spend
Huge.
time with people. Yes, you don't talk so much. I get that. At least not while you're underwater. But you spend time with them, you speak after, you speak before, you discuss your issues. In what other sport do you like sit down with the person you just played paddle with? Do you sit down after with them? I really liked how this went. I didn't like how this went. Usually that doesn't happen.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really, you know, a good part of it. Look how, you know, we love being together online, in person, whatever. And you know, I may have met you in my normal life, but you know, Memo lives in Turkey, Corinna lives in South Africa, I live in England. We normally wouldn't cross paths, you know, and so it's diving into sports together, and that's what's really nice. That's really a nice way to meet people, and we know it's a small community. Whenever you travel somewhere, you'll see somebody you've seen before.
And it's very
Definitely.
social. People, if you bring up to somebody and if you just say in conversation with your spouse, "Ah, diving here, diving there," and somebody sits in the room and just overhears you like, "Oh, you're a diver? Yeah, me too." Immediate icebreaker.
That's right.
Exactly.
Adam, I'm going to
Yes.
come to you. Out of all of the courses you've ever taken, what was the course that made the biggest difference for you?
So
Continuing education.
unfortunately, I did it the wrong way. I went quite a long way. I went quite a long way down the. Would you believe it? Yeah, I know. I went quite a long way down the career path without having really solid basics. And I'm one of those natural people. If you give me a club or a bat or whatever, I'll sort of do okay. I just have that ability. I have an ability to be okay when I'm doing physical things. So I sort of managed to go along and get through a lot of the classes, and sort of I felt like I scraped through sometimes where the instructor said, "Yeah, okay, done." And I didn't feel 100% confident diving at those levels eventually. And so I went back and I did foundations program. And although you don't get any depth, any extra deco, anything, we really work on stability, teamwork, propulsion, becoming aware, you know, and buoyancy control. And so that coupled with my training I did in human factors, which is to understand how people learn, how to debrief a team, how to do non-technical skills. So like, you know, how to function together. Those two together made all the courses later make much more sense. And actually I've been and I've done all of those courses again, at least twice. So I've got a thing at the minute where I want to repeat all my courses again. I did it previously. I did it like 10 years ago. I repeated all my courses and I'm going back again and I'm doing them again now. Partly to see what the quality of SI training is like in the market, because I want to make sure that we're doing a good job, but also partly because I'm sure I'll pick stuff up along the way and I can have a much better input now. I've got solid basics. And so, you know,
you're going to show up with a fake mustache and a wig at dive centers and play Secret Shopper.
Yeah, with a secret shopper, that's what they call it. Obviously, I can't do that. Look at me, you know, bald head, covered in tattoos, English guy. I'm not hiding anywhere, so I'm gonna have to. I'm going there and telling the people, and I'm choosing really, let's say, people in the industry that stand out. So I'm looking for top instructors, top people to teach me, and so I've most of the way through all my scuba stuff again. I want to get back into free diving. So freediving will be in there again, so I can now make that more relevant. I know me and Memo have been talking about decompression in freediving and stuff, so I've got much more of an insight maybe into that kind of thing now I can help with. And so yeah, I want to do that. And you know, Corinna, I still need to learn to swim properly. What you said a minute ago about freestyle being the easiest and the one used for long distance, not for me. I have to breaststroke. That's me. If I need to go anywhere more than about 8 fin kicks, then it's not freestyle. I can deliver all the power in eight strokes, but then I'm done.
Focus on that next time we see each other. Maybe in Malta.
I wanted to say, we're doing this for our audience. If you want us to do this and document it for you, please put it in the comments and whatever
Teaching
comment
Adam to
section you're in.
swim?
We're going to teach each other something. Adam, and I'm embarrassed to say it, I have not done side mount, and I really want to learn side mount.
Really? Okay, then we got you. That's what we're here for. 100%.
Okay, so in Malta we'll do a segment. We'll go freediving with Memo, swimming, and then do side mount. Memo, you also have to join the side mount.
I've taken Memo scuba diving twice. Both times he looked completely like a fish out of water. He knows what to do and he can do it, but he just stares at you he looks at you like, shouldn't I be holding my breath now? Like, this is much longer than it needs to be.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll document it in Malta for all of you, end of the year.
Fine, let's do that.
Okay, Memo, what course made the biggest difference for you in all of your training history experience?
I can think of two. Personal physical awareness, it was training techniques, our training techniques program. It teaches you the logic behind how to train for your missing parts, right? Once you understand the topic, then you can develop your own training routine or the set of exercises, which can really help you. So, focusing on your, missing parts, high points, low points. And then it really taught me a lot. I felt like I'm becoming more competent. And there was one season I was getting ready for a couple of competitions. I was religiously following nothing but the program of our book was saying. So together with one of the instructors working with me, Eid, kudos to him. So we were doing all the exercises from the book regularly. And we just couldn't believe in the results, we increased our level of freediving massively. And the others, I don't think, maybe it's like the end of the continuing education spectrum, the professional programs. Once I realized I can also enjoy diving by solving other people's problems and creating solutions for specific problems, that just connected to me to the sport at another level. It was kind of a bucket of love on my face to enjoy freediving a lot. So these two were definitely big milestones in my freediving career.
What about you, Corinna? For you, the biggest, let's say, win in your diving, what do you get the most from?
For me, it's I think in both sense, it's rescue stuff. I like rescue stuff because it makes me confident in my abilities. So is it in scuba diving, stress and rescue, or is it lifeguard training? Both of it really, and it's like, it's satisfying in a way where I know I can help. Not that I want to help people. I need to help people.
Everybody says to me, oh, Adam, you're a first aid trainer. I say, yeah, but you don't want any help from me because it takes about 9 weeks to train somebody to fix that bleeding.
But yeah, doing that, and I did it also fairly young. I did my first rescue course, and obviously being small as I am, I usually am always paired with somebody at least Adam's size or much bigger than Adam's size. And it teaches you a lot about how to use your body and your own strength.
Well, yeah, you're a tough cookie, so I think you're okay as well. I don't think dragging somebody like me out the pool is a problem for you. That's cool.
Yeah, so rescue stuff, and then obviously pro stuff, but also I really enjoyed just, good old deep diving course. Good old deep diving course was amazing because that's when I was still a teenager. So everything's like, wow, amazing. Everything gets more exciting because now you can go deeper and you can go to that one place you've been wanting to go to for like the longest time.
I think some of the best courses are taught by the most passionate pros, right? And if I think about some of the, maybe they didn't make the most effect in my diving, but they opened my eyes the most was when I took some ecology programs. I took coral, yeah, and I read it, and there's so much Latin in there, I was completely lost. And I was like, I'm not convinced I'm going to enjoy this. And then I did it online, actually, and I had 5 sessions, 5 1-hour sessions, and they were probably they felt like 10 minutes. They felt so short because there's so much cool information, and we had loads of questions at the end, and they were like, oh, okay, that's the time up. And I was like, okay. So, I learned loads through those ecology programs. When you have somebody who's passionate about it, even though there was no water in that was still something I took a lot from personally in terms of enjoyment, just straight up enjoyment. It didn't make me a better diver necessarily, but the straight up enjoyment, something to learn, something to see. And then, of course, as you go diving later, you know, those things start to make sense. Then you see stuff and you're like, oh, yeah, that's that thing from back then. But yeah, they've always been cool. So if you get somebody who's excited, even, you know, what you say would be a simple class is probably, you know, super interesting.
The same thing happened to me, and I'm not actually, I read the ecology programs. For me, it's like, yeah, nice. But then I listened to a few people talk about it. And when that passion comes through, all of a sudden, wow, amazing. Corals. Of course, I like corals, but would I spend my dive identifying each coral I see? That's not the type of diver I personally am. But then when you speak to somebody who's like so passionate about it and so like this does this and this coral does that, and sort of saying, oh, maybe this is more interesting than I thought it is.
Yeah, it's about the passion. You know, I always feel like I was sort of born to teach people to dive. I wasn't born to be an explorer. I was born to show other people the path. And that's why this continuing education thing is so important to me, because it's what I want to do. And I got so much out of it along my journey that I want to now show everybody else that it's possible. It's easy. It's not easy, but it's simple. And, you know, it's something anybody can do.
And what I love the most about our continuing education program is that you can just customize it to yourself. You don't have to go one strict path. You can choose any path. You can do your open water, dive for 15 years with your open water, and only then take some specialties. Take one specialty for like freshwater ecology because you dive in lakes, and then maybe you take React Right or something that just in somebody else's head maybe doesn't fit together, but for you, that's the correct way. And that's the nice thing. You can really design your own path.
So if you're listening at home, in the comments, go and write down the course that you got the most from, okay, and of course what you got, and then write down a combination of two courses that you think would suit you, but may not be traditionally seen as being, you know, combinable. Yeah, and then we'll talk about that in one of our next episodes. That'll be something super interesting to see what you guys have done out there.
Yeah, I agree. And if you have like a super crazy career path, let us know. We want to have some interesting, exciting things.
Yeah, like try mixed free diving, right? So
yeah, try mixed free diving.
Coming up soon.
April the 1st is gone.
Yeah,
it's gone. And it was horrible. I was on Instagram and like people were showing so much cool stuff, and obviously it was all just fake.
It just turned into a day of AI generated pictures for me. I just had AI generated picture after AI generated picture after AI generated picture. And now I don't actually know if I see something true, whether I'm going to believe it anymore. I'm just like,
the problem, right? Because Morris did one where they were like, they have the like in-screen, like a screen data mask, right? But technically, that's not April Fool's enough for me anymore, because this is technically possible now. There's meta glasses. All of this is happening already. So theoretically, this would be possible.
Yeah, 5 years.
That could be a product next year. And then we're going to say, no, don't believe you.
But that's the story of my life. That's my birthday. April 1st is my birthday.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been struggling it for the last 48 years.
Shame, that's so mean.
That's so mean, yeah. We're not going to compare you to being a joke, Memo. We love you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Okay, guys, I have another very important question. What was your most embarrassing moment as an instructor?
Mine's already on the internet. Go to YouTube and watch it. I'll tell you right now. I'll put that out there already. So I'd just become the training director of SSI. And so I was head of all technical training at SSI. I was invited to Red Sea Silence, which is a rebreather week. I was there as a guest. I was speaking in the evenings and trying to promote SSI. And they put me on the boat with the top CCR people. So Vicky Battens, who's president of Rebreather Technologies for Paddy, Mark from TDI. We had the rebreather manufacturers, Martin Parker, who owns AP, Jan, who owns JJ. So super, super high level people in our community. And so we all go rebreather diving on the boat. I put my rebreather together. I'm following my checklist. I've got my SSI t-shirt, everything on. I'm doing everything at 100%. Do not slip up, Adam. You're being watched. So get everything right. Get my rebreather on. Get my bailout on. Go to the back of the boat. Giant stride. As I giant stride, I look at my foot. No fins. Everybody else is waiting in the water, yeah? And I'm mid-air with my rebreather and a bailout on and no fins. And I just died inside. I could hear that, that. And I splashed, I hit the water, and I was like, oh, man, there's no helping
Happens
our
to
agency.
the best of us.
The
Happens
agency's
to
got
the
an
best
idiot.
of us, Tiz.
Yeah.
And so,
Forgotten something and something.
to be fair, good people. I was sort of like signaling to the boat boy, like, my fins, get me my fins, get me my fins. And he threw them in on the quiet, and everybody saw. Nobody said anything, luckily. Everybody just smiled, made the descent, and I was like, nice people, because I might not have been so nice, I could have laughed at that. So yeah. That's the most embarrassing mistake. Head of the trading agency, don't even forget to.
How about yourself, Memo?
I think it's an equipment failure. Freediving wetsuits are, quite mean, especially if you don't have enough lubrication to put them on. You may get stuck, in a very bad way. So I remember myself getting stuck in a suit once and trying to, put it on or getting out of it. Like I started to fight with it. So ending up the suit gave a birth to a Memo. So it ripped apart. I was just like, I popped out from the suit, in the laughter of all my customers. So it was one of these moments I can imagine. But it's not the only one, because eventually, you start feeling lazy about it. And this thing repeats itself every 2-3 seasons. First one is the worst, guys. First one is the worst.
Customers just come to watch. They dive with you again and again just so they can see the wetsuit birth.
I've got a wetsuit just like that, Memo. Every winter it shrinks it like 2 sizes. I come to the summer over the winter, I try and put it on and it doesn't fit. Unbelievable.
So the first one is the worst. Like in the second one, third one, fourth one, you start feeling like super seasoned. And as soon as you rip the suit out, you just act super cool and say like, it was the time, right? Bring me the other suit. So you just act cool. That's the secret.
Corinna?
Yeah, what about you?
Well, I have also forgotten my fair share of equipment. But that's probably not it. I would say it was in my ITS. Academic presentations, that one. And I was doing an academic presentation. It was about heat loss in the water. Finished my presentation, great. ITD says, it was great. You just forgot an entire part of the presentation. I was like, oh, damn. Okay, now do the same topic again. Did I not do this presentation 3 times and I always forgot that same part of I failed with it.
Yeah, that
Three
mental
times.
block. Yeah, that's a mental block, right? That's one of these things where, when you have to perform on your own and you have that block, there's no seeing it. It just doesn't happen. We all write materials for SSI, right? And I can write something and read it 10 times and it be 100% true in my head. The second I give it to somebody else, they said, what about that glaringly obvious mistake? And then you see it immediately. So
yeah,
that's why we have a community. That's why we have a team. That's why we have people around us, right? To stop those things. But yeah, exactly. It can feel embarrassing if you keep making that mistake. But it's a human thing. That definitely happens.
Yeah, it happens. Did you ever forget a computer when going diving?
We have to take 2. I forgot both. You can't believe how many iPhones I've taken diving in my outside of my dry suit pocket. This stuff is normal for me. This is a day-to-day occurrence.
Yeah.
Wow.
Same.
Yeah, it happens to all of us. I mean, last year I ran an ITS in Mexico. I went there without any shorts, right? So they were on my bed, so I just forgot to pack them. So
I'm just having visions now of you hopping around the dive center with 1 foot in a wetsuit with no underwear on, no shorts on, just hopping around, being birthed out of a wetsuit completely butt naked.
You should act cool about it. That's it.
Just act cool about it.
Yeah.
So, do I have anything else I want to ask you? What would you say that the biggest mistakes new pros make is at the moment that you see, that you encounter a lot?
For me, I think the biggest thing at the minute that's happening in pro training globally is the amount of people who want to get the levels but don't want to put the work in. I think that you can't turn up to training programs and expect to pass. Attendance isn't passing. There's homework to be done. There's a lot of preparation to be done, and we don't see that now. I think maybe I've sounded like the old man again, but tends to be that people come in less prepared. Even though we've got better training, we've got better access to materials, we give people schedules, we give people everything, they just assume that the instructors will cover that knowledge when they get there. So the preparation is low. Of course, that's not everybody. It's not, it's a bit of a generalization, but that's what we're finding with all the pros. And then you go up to the next level, same thing. So people come to specialty instructor seminars. They're not really read the specialty. They're not really took the time to detail out their plans. And then they sort of wing it based on the evaluation criteria. And I don't think that's the case. I think with pro training, it does take that extra level of prep. You need to get yourself sorted, get yourself squared away, and then the path can be relatively fast. If you're spending the time at each level to do the work, it will flow and it will become fast. Don't do it on the back end. Don't do the training and then try and catch up and do all the exam revision and try, while you're going. You want to be prepared so that while you're there at the training program, we can give you the most info, and then you're sort of ready to accept that information. So for me, that's the biggest problem at the minute in terms of pro training, the biggest mistake they make, not enough preparation.
How about you, Memo?
Well, becoming an instructor is a milestone in every professional's career. We became the leader of our community. We became the leader of the pack. And of course, we want to share what we know with our followers, with our students. It makes us also happy to share what we know. However, what I see lately is, especially the new instructors are trying to promote progress a little bit too fast. This means they are sometimes giving information from higher level programs, which can potentially be dangerous. A beginner doesn't need to know high level equalization skills before they master, body position in the water. So they think maybe they are doing a favor, but delivering information higher than the level of the student is not necessarily a favor. It can be a burden, it can really doom the customer because it can overwhelm them. They will definitely not master this kind of information. This is what I see almost everywhere around the world. This cool factor, trying to become the coolest guy, coolest instructors, giving you one thing and making you 5 meters deeper. So these are not the values we should be chasing for. The depth or the performance will inevitably increase, but we should just, tell people that repetition is the key. It's not one information hidden somewhere deep in the wardrobe. So they should understand that.
You touched on something that really gets to me, Memo, is you go online, do this thing for 5 days, you're suddenly an athlete. Oof. Do this online trading platform, and you're going to be a stockbroker. And the quick fixes like
that and the creatine. I don't like it. Take creatine on top of that. You're going to be the monster.
Creatine fixes everything. And what's the other one? What's that other thing that your body creates that's not good for you, that people are saying you need to avoid? That stress hormone.
Cortisol.
Yeah. Cortisol. Cut that out, and your life's going to be immediately improve. Well, I'm not convinced. I think it takes a little bit of work.
Well, in a way, if you cut out all the stresses in your life will be improved. I mean, it does make sense, but
you might be very lonely sat in your cave on your own.
Yeah.
No,
sorry for hijacking you, buddy.
I'm a big one for putting the work in. I think that's the case. There is no quick fixes. People think the agencies slow people down so we can earn more money from them, right? That's our, let's say, perception that people have of us, but it's not. We really think this is an amount of information that's relevant right now. Get that done, get that mastered, spend a bit of time on it, and then do the next thing, because it makes the most sense in this order. We are people who've done these paths. We're people who are part of these paths. We listen to every pro teaching this path, and this is what we decide for that purpose. So it's not just a case of let's break it down into as many steps we can charge for as possible. That's definitely not the case, right? If you thought it'd be great to teach, FENS on level 1, you would. There's nothing to stop you doing that, right? You could define the course how you like, but it just doesn't make sense. What about you, Corinna? What do you think?
I think one thing that I went through myself in a way, and I think that happens to a lot of younger instructors, is that they don't sell enough just they don't do enough sales. So continuing education and equipment, whatever, because they feel like they're going to be a sellout. I was the same. I was like, you're an instructor. We all love diving. I want you to love diving, but I don't want you to spend all your money on it, or I don't want to feel like a sellout or like a TV commercial salesperson, where obviously you have to understand that selling continuing education is not for you. Yes, you get a commission as a professional. That's nice. And you do a bit of training, but it's for the customer, and the customer, they will not buy it if they don't want it. Equipment. I am of the firmest belief that there should not be a single open water diver in the world that does not own their own mask. It's a mandatory item, right? But so many young instructors are scared of doing the upsell, and you don't have to upsell in a way where you're like, if you buy one equipment today, you get 2 free fins tomorrow, or something like that, right? Because that is, and I see this in IEs a lot. In IEs, you have like this mandatory sales portion when they do the academics. And they're like, let's go to the shop. We are having a special offer on this piece of equipment today. That's not how you need to sell. You need to give people value. You want to be a safer diver, so you should take a stress and rescue course. Right?
I always say the same. Why did you take all these courses to where you are now? Well, because
somebody offered to us.
Because they made me better, and that's how you become a diver. Okay, so the person stood in front of you. Why don't they want that? So you just present what they want. You're not selling anything. You're just putting stuff in front of people. And that's a really good point, Corinna. I think, we could do a better job of having paid professionals in the diving industry if professionals in the diving industry help themselves by doing some selling. That would generate revenue, that would generate jobs, that would keep things going, right? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, that one.
That one, 100%. The dive center earns more. The dive center can upgrade. Now the dive center is beautiful. It's going to get more customers. You can charge the customers more. Now you get more salary. You have more people to do the work maybe you don't enjoy so much. And it's just basic business.
We create better divers at the end of the day.
And everybody's safer.
What we strive for.
There's literally no negative effect of this. No downside. Hey, beautiful. So I think that's it for today. Do my colleagues have anything else to say?
Amazing.
No, I think continuing education is such a long topic. We could talk about it for hours. What we should do is we should spend maybe a little bit of time in the future thinking about more specific continuing education paths that we can talk about with people. Use not the fun sessions about that. Maybe we can use our more dedicated times to really detail out the path, the prerequisites, etc. for each of our categories. That would be a nice idea, and what you gain from each of those. So I'm looking forward to hearing what our listeners have got to say in terms of what training program they got the most out of, and which of those combinations they think would be cool together. So that's something I'm interested to hear about.
Maybe we'll find a prize for the weirdest combination.
Yeah, we'll find something.
We'll manage something. We'll sort something out. So, okay, guys, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening, as always. And we will hear you in the next one.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.